Today, we are continuing our quest to build the tallest building in every single country in Africa. From random offices and apartments to iconic skyscrapers. And from the most colossal religious structures to the new tallest building in all of Africa. Without further ado, let's get building. We start part 2 with Cameroon at the 24 spot. It's a 90-meter tall prime ministry building in the country's capital, Yaoundé. It serves as one of the seats of the Cameroonian government and is not too complicated of a build. I think it's quite an interesting look overall. We then go to Ghana for the 92-meter tall Alto Tower in the city of Accra. It is one of several towers in the new Villaggio Vista residential complex that all feature this bright blocky pattern, which was quite interesting to recreate. I made sure to get the pattern in first and then carve out the windows after, to make it a bit easier for myself, and I think it actually worked out pretty well. Also, in this video I'm gonna try to show you a real life picture of each building as well. You guys have been requesting something like that for a while now, so let me know what you think. Next up is Namibia, with the first building on this list to hit the 100-meter mark at exactly 100 meters tall. It's the Old Mutual Namibia headquarters in Windhoek. It's an office building with some interesting architectural details. I especially like the greenery and flowers covering the balconies. Kinda makes the whole building look a little bit more welcoming. In the end, I think it's nothing too exciting, but not a bad building by any means. For the number 21 spot we go to Guinea, for the 100-meter tall Kakimbo Towers. These twin towers were built right on the edge of the Kakimbo forest, a nowadays small protected area of forest in the capital Conakry, that is slowly being suffocated by the city and its pollution. And the Kakimbo towers have been of no help to this problem, dumping much of their wastewater straight into the forest, contributing to it slowly being filled with trash and killing the plants and wildlife. So a bit of a sour taste on this one. Next up is the Hôtel de Février in Togo's capital, Lomé. It is by far the tallest building in Togo, as it is in fact the only true high-rise building in the entire country, at 102 meters tall. It was opened in 1980 and named after the date on which President Gnassingbé Eyadema nationalized the country's phosphate mines, something which he clearly thought was worth being remembered. At the number 19 spot we find the iTower 2 in Gaborone, Botswana. At 105 meters tall, the building houses a hotel and many luxury apartments. The building was part of one of many projects over the last 20 years aiming to modernize the country's capital, which honestly seems to work pretty well for them, as Botswana is currently one of the most wealthy, free and prosperous countries in Africa. Fun fact as I finish up this build, Botswana is also home to over 150,000 elephants, the most of any country on earth. We then go to Tunisia for the 112-meter tall Hotel Africa, or currently the El Mouradi Hotel, in the country's capital Tunis. Built in 1971, the hotel consists of 212 rooms and is located right in the center of the city. The facade here was quite interesting to build, with some interesting elements, and the base of this building being not quite symmetrical made it a bit more of a challenge. But I think it worked out pretty well, and I kinda like the way this one turned out. Next up is Zimbabwe, with the new Reserve Bank Tower. Standing 120 meters tall, it's located in Zimbabwe's capital, Harare. It serves as the headquarters for the largest bank in the country, and has been Zimbabwe's tallest building ever since its completion in 1997. This one was honestly quite fun to build, with its octagonal shape tapering outwards at the bottom, and the archway kind of thing at the entrance was quite an interesting build as well. I kinda like how this one turned out. Then, at the number 16 spot, we find one of the least symmetrical buildings on this entire list. It's the Bank of Mauritius building in the country's capital, Port Louis. Standing 124 meters tall, it is one of the most technologically advanced buildings in the country. It was built in 2006 to withstand the seasonal hurricanes that regularly hit the country. As you can see, there really wasn't a lot of copying and mirroring that could be done. So it was quite a challenge to get everything right. But I think it worked out pretty well. Definitely an interesting build. We then go to the island of Madagascar and its capital Antananarivo, where we find the 125 meter tall orange telecommunications tower. In contrast to its city's name, the tower itself is actually very simple, just a pretty straightforward office tower. At number 14 we then find the NTC Tower, or the National Telecommunications Corporation Tower in Sudan. Located in the country's capital, Khartoum, it stands 130 meters tall. Since its completion in 2009, it has stood as an important landmark for the city, but sadly has also seen a lot of violence amid the violent civil war that rages in the country to this day. Even just last year, in 2024, the middle section of the building was severely damaged by bombing and a subsequent fire that both sides of the war accused each other of starting. So we can only hope that the future for this iconic building may be brighter than its past. Next up is Mozambique, with the 130 meter tall Banco de Mozambique Tower 1. It was built in 2017 to replace the bank's former headquarters, which still remain attached to this new building site, and which the bank has promised to maintain for its historical value to the city of Maputo. This new tower though has a very modern look, with a curved glass facade interrupted by several balconies and terraces along its height. The backside of the building is a bit more boring, but that side is not as easily visible from the street, so who cares? I quite like this building, and I think it turned out really well. At the number 12 spot we find the Tours Empila, or the Empila Twin Towers, at 135.8 meters tall. These towers opened not too long ago, in 2023, with one of the towers housing offices and the other a Hilton hotel. The towers have faced quite a bit of criticism during and since their construction, as they have been funded and built by the Chinese through their Belt and Road Initiative. The towers seem to serve as a prestige project for the president, while they really don't serve much of a purpose to the country, and only help China gain more and more control of the country's mineral wealth, ensuring Congo's own population will never see any of it. We then go to Libya for the Burj Boulaya Office Tower 1, a pair of skyscrapers in the country's capital Tripoli, the tallest of which rises to an impressive 144 meters tall. This was definitely one of the more interesting builds on this list, as the complex consists of several slightly angled rectangular towers, incorporating all kinds of elements inspired by traditional local architecture. Especially the base of the towers is an interesting modern take on several of the architectural styles that have shaped the city, while the towers themselves look very sleek and modern. To start off the top 10, we have the IMOB Business Tower in Luanda, Angola. This 145 meter tall office tower was built in 2017 as a new headquarters for the country's Ministry of Finance. This ultimately didn't end up happening, and the building is now just rented office space. It's not the first building on this list where there's quite some controversy around its construction, as the developer for the building was a company owned by the president and his family, which pocketed huge amounts of government money throughout the construction of the tower. Next up is by far the biggest building on this list. It's the Basilica of Our Lady of Peace in Ivory Coast's administrative capital, Yamoussoukro. It's currently the largest church anywhere in the world. Even just this square in front of the building took me longer to build than any other building on this list. Luckily, there is quite a lot of symmetry throughout this build though, so that definitely helped speed things up a little bit. As the largest church in the world, the Basilica of Our Lady of Peace even surpasses the St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City. I built that one a couple of months ago in my Tallest Buildings of Europe video, which might be worth checking out as well if you haven't done so yet. But for those who did watch it already, you're probably going to recognize quite some similarities between the two, as this basilica was heavily inspired by the one in Vatican City. It is, however, not an exact copy by any means. Mostly the shape and some bigger elements are carried over, but the dimensions are quite different, and especially the details show a very different style of architecture. Where the one in Vatican City is covered in huge amounts of detailed ornaments and statues, this version is much more simplistic, and in a way a bit more modern looking. The basilica can house up to 18,000 worshippers, although most liturgies are only attended by several hundred people at most. A weird thing about the church as well is that it's kind of weirdly located in the middle of some barren fields on a poor and underdeveloped side of the city, despite being one of the most expensive construction projects ever undertaken in the country. The odd location might be explained by the fact that it is the birthplace of then President Félix Houphouët-Boigny, who funded the construction at a time when he had just doubled the country's national debt. Basically, the basilica was a way for him to immortalize himself and to leave something behind for his country. Despite all this though, the building does stand proud as a monument for the country, rising up from the civil wars and unrest that have held it back for many years, and has become a great symbol of national pride. Next up is the PPF Tower 2 in Tanzania's capital, Dar es Salaam. Standing 160 meters tall, this building consists of two separate towers, one being significantly taller than the other, that are together clad in over 66,000 square meters of reflective blue glass panels. It was quite tricky trying to find the right colors for the tower. It has very visible floors in real life, but these remain distinctively blue. In Minecraft, using too much blue behind the stained glass made it way too bright, while using darker tones quickly made it not blue enough. In the end I settled on these prismarine blocks. They make the tower look a little bit more green than I would have hoped, but it was by far the closest look to the original, so ultimately I'm quite happy with how it turned out. We then go to Nigeria at the number 7 spot for the Nikem House in Lagos, Nigeria. It stands 160.3 meters tall to the tip of its spire, which you'll see me build in just a minute. The building serves as the headquarters to Nitel, a large telecom provider in the country. It was built as a symbol of Nigeria's economic growth and infrastructure modernization, as it was built at a time when Nigeria was beginning to be referred to as the Giant of Africa. The spire on top houses a lot of telecommunication equipment, but interestingly also serves as a lighthouse beacon for the Lagos harbor. At number 6 we find the Britam Tower in Nairobi, Kenya. It stands 200.1 meters tall in a shape that you might recognize from the Freedom Tower in New York City, that I also recreated a while ago. The shape is said to be inspired by the iconic Mount Kenya, that towers above the country in a similar triangular shape. At the top of the building stands a 67 meter tall spire that features this spiral shape that interestingly functions as a wind turbine, while also simply being an iconic part of the tower and the Nairobi skyline as a whole. Next up is the Commercial Bank of Ethiopia, standing 209.3 meters tall. Located in Ethiopia's capital Addis Ababa, the tower serves as the headquarters for the country's largest bank. In terms of design, this is definitely one of my favorite buildings on this list. Its facade is broken up into triangles that are all at slightly different angles, which was honestly quite tricky to build as it's very subtle. So subtle in fact that it was hardly visible in Minecraft. So to combat this, I decided to try and give the triangles alternating lighter and darker blue hues, to create a more obvious difference between the differently angled triangles. In the end, I think this worked out brilliantly, and I think it's one of my favorite builds in this video. We then go to South Africa for the Leonardo at 234 meters tall. Located in Johannesburg, the Leonardo was the tallest building in Africa when it opened not that long ago in 2019. Since then, however, it has been surpassed by 3 other skyscrapers in 3 different African countries, which will obviously be the next 3 buildings on this list. It is still a very impressive building though, housing a 5-star hotel as well as many luxury apartments. It is situated in one of the most expensive parts of the country, sitting just 100 meters away from the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. The first building on the podium, at the number 3 spot, is the Mohammed VI Tower just outside of Morocco's capital Rabat. It stands at 250 meters tall and was completed in 2023. The building has a very interesting shape, as it's like 2 elliptoid shapes fused together. The billionaire owner that funded the construction claimed to have been inspired by spaceflight and his visit to NASA all the way back in 1969, which is why he wanted to have the building look like a rocket, ready to take him and his company to new heights. The blue side of the building here is actually covered in photovoltaic panels, providing clean energy to the building, which houses a hotel, offices, apartments, and one of the highest observation decks in Africa. Then the second tallest building in Africa is the Jama El Jazair in Algiers, Algeria. It is actually the 3rd largest mosque in the world, and here you'll only see me build the front part of it, where the main tower is located. This minaret actually makes it the tallest religious building in the world, standing 264.3 meters tall. Now obviously similar minarets would not normally count as a building, as they are just towers with no actual usable floors. But in this case the minaret actually houses office space throughout its entire height, as well as an observation deck at the top. It was also designed to withstand magnitude 9 earthquakes, and the entire structure has been specially processed to withstand corrosion, making it one of the strongest buildings out there. It's definitely a very unique building, with nothing like it anywhere in the world, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. Then finally at the number 1 spot we find the iconic tower in the new administrative capital of Egypt, just outside of Cairo. At 394 meters tall, it truly dwarfs the other buildings on this list, and it was actually deceptively complicated to build. The entire shape of the building tapers just ever so slightly, becoming thinner towards the top, so I had to use Worldedit to get the curving shape of each separate floor, making its radius just a few centimeters smaller for each floor. Then I had to reconnect all these curves towards the center line of the building, where it actually straightens out a bit. I think it really is a spectacular design, resembling the shape of a traditional Egyptian obelisk, while the glass exterior represents the 2 leaves that form the Egyptian god Atum's Shuti crown. Together it looks beautiful, and I'm really happy with how it turned out here in Minecraft. So that concludes the tallest building in every single country in Africa. Thank you so much for watching, and be sure to check out part 1 if you haven't done so yet. Also, please feel free to check out the tallest buildings of Europe, North America and South America that are already up on my channel. There's some really cool buildings in those as well. Let me know which building was your favorite in this video and which countries or continents you would like to see next. If you enjoyed this content, please do consider subscribing, and I will see you all in the next one.